Are you eating again? My God, we should just change the name of the show to Terry's Eating Lunch. Howdy, folks, and welcome to episode 468 of the Dead Robot Society. Paulie Cooley here, joining me today, as always, Mr. Terry Kiss My Ass Mixman. How are you doing, Terry?
I've got glad hands.
Glad hands? Why do you have glad hands? Those look more like jazz hands. Why do you have glad hands slash jazz hands?
Is that what they're actually called? I thought they were glad hands.
I think they're called jazz hands. I think that's jazz hands, not glad hands.
Okay, we'll run with that. I can be wrong. I often am.
You know, you're so freaking old. You should know these things.
Hey, I'm so old that jazz was actually a thing when I was, a kid.
It's still a thing.
Really?
Yes, just like so is chamber music and symphonies.
You want to know how old I am?
How old are you?
I actually watched the Lawrence Welk show as a child.
So did I. What's your point? We also both watched Hee Haw.
And the one and the two.
Jesus Christ! I remember
there's a reference that no one will get.
I can remember my grandmother watching Liberace, for crying out loud.
I'll bet that was exciting.
Oh my God! It was just like, I wish my mother were here. You know, it's all those Carol Burnett ripoffs that they did about Liberace. Maybe it's SNL, I don't remember which. But yeah, those were just absolutely hilarious. And of course, Looney Tunes did it too. So yeah, it's one of those things. Anyway, what's up with you, man?
I got a deadline. I got a big deadline. I've got to get Oath of Vengeance finished.
Oath of Vengeance.
I want to get it done by the end of the month.
Mm-hmm. And Oath of Vengeance is the sequel to Heart of Vengeance.
That's right.
That's the book you wrote with Glenn Stewart.
Yep. So I've got to get this second one done, and I've got 2 to 3 weeks to make it happen. So I've got to put my nose to the grindstone and get it done.
You know, I was thinking about this last night before I drifted off. We got to look up where the hell that came from, nose to the grindstone. We got to look that up. We got to see what the etymology is of that.
Seems like, you'd end up with looking like Voldemort if that happened.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too last night before I dropped off to sleep, but I don't know why, but I had this image of a guy, person working, trying to file something down so close that, their nose is touching. And I'm like, that would take off most of your skin on your nose. Who the hell wants to put their nose to the grindstone? It makes no sense to me.
Once I'm done with my nose to the grindstone, I'll have to appear on the show and go, "So, Mr. Potter."
Oh, that's Snape, not Voldemort.
Whatever. I can't do voices.
Yeah, we'll be talking about that later. Anyway, so what are you going to do to kick your ass in gear and get this book done?
I still have lots of appointments of various kinds set up for this month. So everything that I just cannot put off gets done. Everything else gets put aside, and I'm getting up in the morning and getting to work on it. And I'm going to continue working on it all day for every spare minute that I have for it to make it happen. Because I've got to meet the deadline. My self-imposed deadline is getting it done by the end of the month. I've got about 60,000 words to go.
Oof.
And I do have a little bit of play there, because the hard deadline to have it to Glenn is about a week later.
Okay.
So, and to be fair, about 40,000 more words is stuff that I'm rewriting that he's already written. So it may go faster for those parts than the rest.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's doable.
It's doable. It's getting to crunch time. It's not an impossible goal.
Right.
If I can knock out 5,000 words a day, then I'm fine. I'll make that deadline.
Mm-hmm.
But if I spend all my time sitting on the internet talking with you, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and how often does that happen? Except last night we were sending me all these Facebook messages.
I don't understand Macs. How do Macs work? Why aren't they the same as Windows?
Well, you have to unlearn all the terrible habits Windows has taught you over the years first.
That's not going to happen.
Actually, it will eventually. It'll make more sense. Promised. I promise. It will all make more sense. The internet.
How to make my Mac behave exactly like Windows.
Well, first off, you'd have to get a lobotomy. And then after that, we'll start wars.
To be fair, it's not that hard to learn the things that I'm needing to do with it. Since I'm only using it for a couple of purposes, it's actually working out fine. I'm not really having that much trouble.
Cool. Glad to hear it. And you are liking Vellum.
I am liking Vellum. Of course, now that I've output it, my wife's looking at the PDF going, yeah, we need to change this and this here. We need to do this here. I said, I don't think that program does what you think it does. It's going to be a fairly simple output. And you're going to have to look at some of the options, but you may not be able to control all the little bits and pieces you think you can.
And you're talking about the print version.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't know.
Have you done one through print? Have you done one of your print books through Vellum?
No, I have not. I have not done that. No, Gary's Inferno is probably going to be the first one that I put together myself for the POD version, but I still don't have artwork yet and no deadline or no time frame on when we'll get that artwork right now. So, things to be done.
It only took me, once I settled on the basic parameters that I was going to do in the book, 13 novels worth of importing, including the compilation, took me all of 3 hours.
Mm.
So it didn't take me long to get them in the form that I think is baselined. And once Donna makes her decisions on a few minor changes, it'll probably take me another hour to get them all changed to what I like or what she wants. So it's pretty quick. It's not nearly as slow in generating the changes that I would have feared.
I can't remember. Does Vellum also export to Word doc or just PDF?
You can export from it to Word. Reading that somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know that I'm going to.
Obviously, I haven't played with it enough, aside from the apart from the ebook stuff.
Yeah, don't hold me to that. I haven't actually done it, and I might be misremembering something. So
no, you're a writer. You're just making shit up.
One of the people that we had on recently, Chuck Hunt, I'm going to mispronounce his name horribly. Chuck Heinzelman, remember him?
Yeah.
He wrote a book on using Vellum, and I got it as part of the NaNoWriMo story bundle this year. And I think I read in that he may have been talking about exporting from Scrivener to Word.
Okay.
So I was reading a book about Vellum, and I remember reading something about exporting to Word, but I could have been reading it about Scrivener.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Now we just need to get you to move to Scrivener and all be good.
Why would I? I mean, seriously, I could write in a text editor and probably should be doing so. I literally do not use any of the features that come in Scrivener. I have the most recent Windows copy of Scrivener, and I'll probably pay to upgrade to version 3 whenever they get around to doing it for Windows, but I don't use it.
It just depends on what your process is. I mean, I wrote with Emacs and would write each chapter in a separate file.
I wrote in Vi.
Yeah, well, whatever. And then I wrote a Ruby program to basically put the ebook together from all that stuff. I mean, yeah, I can write in anything. It doesn't matter. But if I'm trying to organize a novel, be able to move chapters around, things like that, then the way Scrivener works really well.
Once you import it to Vellum and it's got it on the left-hand side as chapters and everything else, moving them around is a breeze.
Yeah, but you want to move them around in your source file, not the output file.
As far as I'm concerned, once I finish with the damn book, that's it. The Vellum file is my source file.
Oh, boy.
No, seriously. What else would I change at that point?
It depends. It all depends on the fine tuning. The other thing is, if you have that source file in Scrivener, if you have to go back and change something major down along the lines, or something along that time frame, or if you're creating a compilation, it's going to make it easier to spit it all out.
I can tell you that what I did as far as creating the compilation inside Vellum, I pretty much dragged stuff from 3 different books that are already in Vellum and dragged them into a new one and created the omnibus out of that.
Okay.
And it was a freaking breeze.
Okay.
So the most I will change a book once it's published is I might fix a typo. I might change a sentence here. I might change it there. I just don't go back and revisit anything to a significant degree once it's done. It's done.
I think I come from the too much of a programming background for that. I want the source files. I can't help it. I gotta have them. Just gotta have them.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, it's all about how your workflow is and what you're comfortable with. And I'm much more comfortable with working that way. So it's the way I've always worked. Even when I couldn't work that way with a program, it's still the way I worked.
The biggest changes I have coming is, even though I'm going to be working with Vellum to create the books that I have going forward, I've got half of them that need to still be proofread professionally. And so I'm going to be getting back new versions of those over the next 2 or 3 months. And importing them is going to take me all of 2 minutes. It was that easy.
Yeah, it's fast. It's really fast, and it creates a decent looking ebook from basically.
But I mean, I can create a new file, import the new proofread document. It'll have the chapters right there. I can go to the Empire of Bones book, delete the chapters, drag the new ones in, done. Generate the files. It will literally take me 2 minutes to update that.
All right then. Good for you.
Yeah. And I want to go ahead and take a moment and say that working with John to do the PODs that I already have has been an amazing experience, and he creates really beautiful work. But I just want to get it done. I want to go ahead and get caught up, and he's been busy. So it's not a reflection upon him, me getting Vellum. I just want to go ahead and be able to do it myself.
Yeah, I can understand that. There are times when I wish I was able to do everything, all the things. I want to do all the things, but I can't.
And the fact that I could, now that I have a Mac and I've paid for the program, I don't have any recurring costs. So it's also a financial thing.
Yeah, I think that's the other big deal, is you want to be able to put together some of these things yourself, and it kind of helps being able to make changes and fine tune, and then you'll have to go back and forth with somebody. So yeah, I understand that too. I understand that completely, better than I probably should say I should. Anyway, for me, I'm still working on Destruction. Day job is currently kicking my butt, trying to get over the sickness and as he coughs, so I can start putting together Garrus Inferno and get the start recording that monster. That's going to take a while. So the fun continues, or something.
It's really convenient that you're talking about that, since, I think we should talk about exactly what you're doing there next week.
Yeah, you mean in about 15 minutes when we record that episode?
That's in fact precisely what I meant.
Well, today we are going to talk about plot knots. So let's get into that episode.
Terry, are you familiar with ropes?
We were just talking about Japanese sex robots, and you want to talk about ropes now. What is wrong with you?
Wow. For those people who didn't catch that other intro, wow, they're going to be confused. No, we're not we could be talking bondage. It depends what you're writing, but I wasn't talking about tying folks up or anything like that. Are you familiar with knots?
I know some, yes.
You know some.
And I know that there exists a lot more than I personally would know how to do, because sailors just know how to tie a knot for everything.
Yeah. Now I'm not talking about a sheep shank or a square knot. I am talking about a plot knot.
Oh, those knots I know all about.
Let's try and define what a plot knot is. What is a plot knot?
It's a Gordian knot.
A Gordian knot. What is a Gordian knot?
It's a knot that's so complex that you might as well just take a knife to it and cut the sucker apart.
I always called this a gnarly knot.
See, if somebody doesn't know what a Gordian knot is, they could just call it a Gordo knot.
A Gordo knot. Yeah, go look that up. What does that mean in the context of writing? Since this is a writing podcast, not, you know, a Sailor Moon podcast, you shut up.
The jokes are writing themselves.
Well, yeah, we're on camera.
I'm not sure where we're getting at here, because I could certainly, you know, get into describing how the plot all comes together and then just it becomes like a cauldron of stirred in the middle, so that you have to try to figure out where you're going from there. But I'm not really sure that I would even call that a knot.
Okay, maybe I will have to start this mess then.
You started off.
All right, fine. There are folks who suffer from writer's block. Writer's block can be a number of different maladies. One of those maladies could be, I don't know what to do next. One of those maladies that's also attributed to writer's block is, I don't know where I'm going, period. I don't know if I've gone to the right place. Or the next one, how the hell do I get out of this mess that I've gotten myself into? Because now I have tied up, I've created all these problems where now I've got this loops around this loops around that, and now there's no way to straighten the damn tail out again to where it actually needs to be, because now you've left all these complications that you have no idea how to resolve. So in my mind, those are the plot knots. And I think they frequently cause writer's block, not just because, you know, writer's block doesn't have to be, I don't feel like writing. I'm just not feeling it with the story. No. Usually a writer's block, at least with me, and if you go look at how it's described all over the place, these things tend to get said. I don't know what the next event is. I don't know I don't know how to resolve this complication. And I've written 20,000 words about it. You know, I put it all through the book, and now it's like, if I have to go rip this out, it's going to be just disaster. And so you kind of feel like you've tied a hangman's noose around your neck, and now you're standing on the block ready to jump.
This is where you pause, dear listeners. Don't throw yourself off that block.
It's not worth it, man. It's not worth it. This is a problem that I think has happened to all of us at one time or another, especially when you start writing more complex books, or if you're a younger writer, younger as in more in experience
level.
Yeah, experience level, younger that way. I think it's an issue, and it happens to those of us who've written 9, 10, 12, 15 books. It doesn't matter. It is going to happen eventually. And I guess what we need to do is talk about strategies of how to get past it.
There are a number of ways that you can get past something like that. If you go back to the pulp eras in the 40s, I forget who said it, but one of the big writers from back then said, if he runs into a place where he doesn't know where to proceed, he introduces a man with a gun.
That sounds like Dashiell Hammett.
It very well could have been. I'm not sure the source of the quote, but that actual advice is very useful for anybody that's writing, even in current day. It doesn't have to necessarily be a man with a gun, but if you find yourself saying, what the heck do I do now? Maybe the right answer is to introduce a further complication that forces the character to react. And once you start writing words again, you may be able to figure your way out of what you're currently in, simply by the fact that you have to proceed. You have to keep writing. Or you may decide that I just did something that I shouldn't have done, and throw away the last chapter and go back to the last place it felt like it worked and proceed on with a different choice.
Right.
I would ever really recommend going back and pulling all the way back. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you. You're just
Okay.
kind of.
You kind of froze, and I wasn't sure that my voice was coming through.
No, your voice is coming through. You're just kind of out of sync with your audio.
Well, you've been out of sync with your audio for like 5 minutes.
Oh, good. I love the internet. It's wonderful. I get this kind of lag. I go back to once upon a time, a wizened wizard who frequently podcasts with me, when asked how you get back into something that you stopped writing, said you write the next sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I won't give credit to that person because, well, I loathe them.
I stole it from somebody else, so give credit
I'm
to
sure
someone else. I'm a writer. I steal everything from everyone else.
We thieving is much better than creating. No. Let me change that. Thieving is much better than inventing. There we go. I think I got it right now. I had this issue where I set up so much crap that I had no idea how to untangle this without writing like 3 more books. And even then it wouldn't do what it needed to do. It would bore the shit out of people. So I was like, how the hell am I going to pass this? And it was also blocking me on how I was going to end this book that I'm writing, which is Derelict Destruction. So I told you this in the intro. I on Friday I was writing this and I wrote this 1 chapter and finished it up. And it was like maybe four paragraphs I added this chapter. Well, the syncing somehow broke down in Scrivener. And so those paragraphs that I wrote are gone. They went to data heaven. So this morning when I went back to the document, I was really ticked off. I mean, I was pissed. So I said, fuck that chapter. I'm going to the next chapter that was, I'd maybe written 800 words on and was like, well, screw that. I'm going to go bang on this, bastard, bitch. And I have no idea what I'm doing, where this is going now because blah, 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 blah. And then I went, wait a minute. I actually painted myself into a corner in that last chapter. The stuff that I've written, I had painted myself into a corner. That's not the corner I wanted to paint. Let's see what we can do here. And so I went through it, and the chapter that I lost the stuff in was one of the AIs musing to itself. And so when I came back, I was having that AI interact with a human, with the captain of SNR Black. And so she started saying some things that she had been thinking about in the last chapter, only she changed what I had her thinking. And I went, oh, okay, well, now I get to go back and rewrite that other chapter, and then this will be better. But suddenly the rest of the book just went bang. It just flowed out.
You saw the end.
Well, it's not just the end. I saw how to get around this complication, which is I had set this up to where Mira is in really bad shape. I mean, it's barely holding together. How the fuck are they going to tow this thing? So suddenly I had everything I needed to make all this work and make sense. And so that's where I'm going with it. And then once I figured that out, man, I was just blazing keys and then really pissed off when the day job kind of jerked me out of it.
Well, I got to tell you that seeing the end clearly, that counts too. You may have already known what you wanted to do, but seeing the path clearly to get there and having the rest of the story crystallize for you, that's really seeing the end.
Yeah, I think that is. And I've done this before with other books where I've seen maybe sometimes there have been a couple of books I've written where I saw the ending, like The Black. I saw the ending for The Black, and the rest of the book just flowed from that. How do I get there?
A desolate landscape filled with the bones of humanity.
So basically, I saw the ending, and which was a Doctor Who episode, The Seeds of Doom, which I don't even think you can get. I had to go to YouTube to watch it again, but I think I stole the ending for The Black from The Seeds of Doom in some ways.
The Doctor is coming for you.
Yeah, I hope so. God, I'm tired.
You don't even want to know where he's going to put that sonic screwdriver.
Hey, now. He's going to put it up my real doll. Anyway, so...
Woohoo!
that there are those times where you have the ending. There are other times where I've started in the middle because that's where the image was I had, and that works for short stories, novels, novellas, whatever. But getting past that knot is one of the greatest feelings in the world, because suddenly it's like it's no longer a tortuous path to write. Because when you really are lost in the wilderness, what did you call it, the great swampy middle? When you get stuck in the great swampy middle, you feel like you're just trudging along and you just cannot get to where you need to go. And I have found that usually that means that there's something wrong with what I'm doing. And because, as I've said, I love the great swampy middle, because I usually don't make it a swampy middle. That's where all the crazy shit happens. All the stuff that sets up the ending, which is hopefully, whiz bang, and I keep you the turning pages for the last 20,000 words. That's usually where the magic happens, is you've got to set all that shit up. So I really enjoy that. But sometimes it leads to this, where you end up with, I don't know where to go next. And I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to bring it back. So your response is you write the next sentence. Your response is you go back to the last chapter that worked, and maybe start from there, or go back to that last chapter and see if that's what's hanging you up, and make changes accordingly.
Those are the two things that usually work for me.
Okay.
And of course, you could always do something like Jim Butcher does and just make things horribly worse.
Yeah, make things horribly worse. It just depends on, I mean, I really like Jim Butcher's attitude about that, which is, the three rules. I'm been espousing these constantly. Who are these people? What do they want? And how can I keep them from getting it? That's your job. So whatever story you're writing, that is essentially the whole point. Is that's how you add that's how you add the drama to it. That's how you make it interesting. And it has to kind of flow from that. So when you're in this plot mess, you're like, I need this to happen for this to happen. Okay, so make that happen. But it's too stupid. Okay, well, write it anyway, and then come back to it, and then maybe you'll figure out a better way to do it. But the writer's block says, the depression says, the self-loathing says, everything says you suck, and you're never going to figure this out, and you should just quit. Why do you?
That is critical voice. That is your critical voice speaking.
Yeah. And it's a bastard. It is a real, I call it it. It is a very, very malevolent god that likes to throw thunderbolts. And so every once in a while, you just got to, put out your lightning rod and let it strike a few times before you can move on. But these moments where I have those issues and then suddenly I manage to untie them are some of the greatest moments and why I enjoy writing so much.
Why do I see Nicolas Cage going, I am the greatest, I am the greatest?
Actually, I was thinking more of Almost Famous, where the kid's on the phone with somebody's like, yeah, he took a whole bunch of sunshine acid. What do you mean is it kicked in? How would I know if it's kicked in? And he's standing up there on the top of this garage, getting ready to jump into this pool going, I am a golden god. He goes, yeah, it's kicked in. There are those moments where you sit there and you feel like, Bruce Almighty or whatever that movie was like, well, I can change anything. I can do anything. I just remembered I'm God. I can make anything happen.
One of the things that I've discovered about writing is that when the critical voice gets you going and you don't know what you're supposed to do next, you've got to shut off the critic. And even if it's something that sounds stupid to you, write it anyway, because once you get into the creative voice, your inner 2-year-old will find a way to tell the story that it wants to tell.
Your inner 2-year-old? Have you met my inner 2-year-old?
All of our writers are 2 years old. Come on. Ooh, let's do this. Ooh. You know it's true.
Squirrel. Oh, wait, that was last episode. Yeah, there is that. And I think that sometimes we forget that we have the power and we just need to use it. But the more complicated the book is, and of course when you're writing series like you do and like I do, even though we're writing completely different kinds of books, that stuff that you put in before, you can't retcon it. And that's really the big problem you get into is, oh shit, that last book, I made something happen that now I have to deal with that. And I can't go back and undo it. I mean, I can't just pretend that didn't happen.
Yes, you can.
No, you can't.
Have you ever gone back and changed a fact? I use air quotes around it. Fact in one of your previous books?
No, not to my knowledge.
I have.
Ooh.
Of course, they were never really big facts.
Well, okay, yeah, but we're talking plot items here. We're not talking.
No, I never went back and retconned any big plot stuff. But I have gone back and retconned things like a ship name or a planet that inadvertently got changed, or things like that.
See, in the next book, he just wiped out, just pretended that planet never existed.
Whatever happened to Planet X? We never speak of Planet X.
Planet Z captured it. It's now a moon in its orbit. Didn't you get the memo?
That's no moon.
Oh shit. When you get to the point where you can't go back and retcon, and this is probably the biggest problem of being a pantser, is once you write these books in a series, especially the ones I'm writing right now, the kinds where it's really one big story, you have to deal with the stuff that you wrote before that people have read, and you have to be constrained by it. And, you know, once it's out there, it's kind of out there. Yeah, you can go back and change it for other readers, but you're really going to piss off everybody who's already read the book in a big, big way.
I've seen a couple of books that I've thought about buying. It comes and it says new revised second edition with major changes. That's probably because you probably shouldn't have went back to change that.
Yeah, you probably goofed in a major way. And, you know, it's one thing if you're going to put out a new edition of a book because you've got maybe some grammatical problems that were fixed, or misspelling here and there, or maybe this character's name got duped in a couple of places. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Planet X no longer exists. And there's no explanation.
There used to be a planet here.
Yeah, there used to be a planet here. It'd be like Paul just suddenly pretending in Derelict that Pluto never existed. That would be a kind of a problem.
It was downgraded from planet, so screw that Pluto.
Yeah, it's still flipping off Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I saw a clip of him. He appeared on the Geek Show. What is the name of that damn Geek Show?
You're going to have to be more specific.
Big Bang Theory. Big Bang Theory. He actually appeared on there and had the main character take him to task for demoting Pluto. And he's like, that wasn't me. Everybody's blaming him for it. He's like, I'm not even an astronomer.
Oh, that's some bullshit right there.
But he didn't actually say that. He's not an astronomer. He's a physicist, isn't he?
I think so, but he might as well be an astronomer. He might as well be. I love that guy.
Fun guy.
DeGrasse Tyson. Freaking awesome. Well, I mean, he does all this stuff with, whoa, it got dark in here. Holy crap. All right, let's not.
And now the black is sneaking up behind Paul because the lights went out.
Yeah, it's getting dark here. You can tell we're recording late, which is all Terry's fault. It's all Terry's fault. So when you get into these plot knots, when you get into this writer's block, it can be demoralizing as hell. Chuck Wendig wrote a great post, and today is actually, what is today? Today is October 10th.
Chuck Wendig, he's still writing?
Shut up. Today's October 10th, 2017, by the way. He had a brilliant post because apparently today is Mental Health Awareness Day or some bullshit like that. And there's a day for everything, seems like. But he wrote up a big deal about mental illness and writing, and it was very, very interesting. And it actually kind of sang to me in a lot of ways because I know the feeling very well that he was putting up there. But this can lead to serious depression. I mean, it really can, and it can stop you from being able to do anything. It just kind of freezes you up. And although I'm sitting here saying that, you know, there are ways to get through it, it's sometimes taken me a month or a month and a half to get over these things. And the only thing that's helped is, for me, for the most part, has been going back and working on something else. And that's why, one of the reasons why I was so antsy about getting Gears Inferno done was because the destruction was, I was locked up. So I might as well go finish this other book. And that worked until I got to this point, and now I was locked up again. And now I've untied.
That happens a lot in your books. You get to a certain point and you hit the spot and you lock up.
It depends. I haven't found that happening with first books in a series. I didn't have that problem with the Black. I didn't have it with Arrival, Outbreak, big time. The last 20,000, 30,000 words, I just could not get to them. But I think that had more to do with some mental issues that were going on. And then I nearly died, and suddenly I came home and finished the book.
I suggest you don't try to repeat that for future works.
So I've been told. I'm not allowed to go to the ER so I can finish a book. With Derelict, the first book went really fast. Tomb was more complex, so it took a little more time. But Tomb has a lot of action in it. I mean, just a tremendous amount of action. So really, it just kept moving. Destruction is tying up a lot of things. And so it gets a little more complex in the sense that you have to look at how all this works and how you're going to get these people out of these situations you put them in. And then try and explain it or put it in such a way that the reader is going to understand what happened and what's happening. So there are things that have to be done to make that happen. And I didn't know how to do it. And of course, I'm half manic today because I figured it out and now I feel like, oh, I can finish this book now. You know, the next 40,000 words I'll be done in 10 days. Yeah, I don't believe it. But the bottom line is that you can get through it. You can get through it, but you have to find those coping mechanisms, and you have to remember that it's not the end of the freaking world. You can go work on something else. And I damn near did this time around with Destruction. I damn near said, screw this, I'm going to go write track 9. And I was going to be in big trouble if I did that. There were threats made to my life.
Threats were made.
I was told there would be consequences. So, and that's the other thing. It was the pressure, right? I want to try and get this book done. I promised it in the fall. Guess what? It's not going to happen. I'm telling myself it's not going to happen just in case it does. But, you know, I'm being somewhat realistic because I have to start recording Gears Inferno. I have to go through the last editing process there. I have to get the cover stuff done with Scott Pond. I have to get all that crap done, the paperback ready, and yada, yada. There's a lot of work to do there. And then, of course, assuming even I finish Destruction, we got beta reader, we got continuity checks, we got editing, and then we, throw it over to Sever Press, get a cover. And while that's going on, I'm recording. So, I mean, it's just not going to happen. It'll probably be January. So, tough shit on my part. Shit happens. But that was a lot of pressure. And I think the moment that I really started taking the pressure off myself and just said, hey, this is just not going to happen, then suddenly it kind of opened everything up. So I think it's really important. We talked about this before. You have to give yourself permission to suck. There's going to be those days where you write 500 words and you're like, this is the worst goddamn trash I've ever written.
And just because you think it's crap doesn't mean that everybody else is going to think it's crap.
This is true. And sometimes I will send chapters off to folks and say, and they come back and I'm like, what's the problem? This is awful.
It was raining outside and the literary washed off me.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's like, so bad a 3-year-old can write better than this. Yes, but you're the one writing it. So maybe it's time for your 3-year-old to come out and play.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? On that I don't even know what it was about, but it had Martin Scorsese in it. And he was getting pictures developed from his grandson's 4-year-old birthday. And he's looking at the pictures. Then he's got the cell phone up. Yeah, we're gonna have to get everybody back together. We need to do a reshoot. It was a hysterical commercial.
It's kind of like the Peyton Manning one where he's trying to get the singer to do the Nationwide is on your side and get it right, and it's just like, yeah, kind of shit.
I got to say that, you know, I think the problem of bringing everything together at the end is something that no one, no matter how much experience they have, is ever going to be completely past. It's one of those things that when you let your creative side loose, they tend to paint outside the lines. Yeah. And then as the book goes along, you've got to figure out, okay, I've got to herd these cats and get them to going somewhere in the same rough general direction towards this goal that I can't imagine at this point how I'm possibly going to get there, but I've got to start edging it there. And this is one of those things that it takes a step at a time. You don't have to solve every single plot problem all at once. Work on one. Work on one and get it headed in the right direction. Then start working on others and shaping them to head in the directions that you want. And you can tame the beast. Don't be overwhelmed by the number of things you've got to do and say, I can't imagine how it's going to happen. Just do one thing at a time, and it will happen.
I just thought of the corollary, the Fiend Master Paul E. Cooley corollary to a man, you know, introduce a man with a gun, kill a character.
Toe tag.
Toe tag time. Time to go to the graveyard. I got to kill another one.
I'm really at a loss of what to do here. What grisly method of execution can I use this time?
Who's pissed me off lately? Who was talking shit on Facebook?
Listeners, here's what you should do to help Paul through these trying moments when he doesn't know what to do in a story. You should all we should on Facebook compile a list of different things that he has to just randomly pick one to insert into the story at that moment in time when he doesn't know what to do next. And I'll start off the list with Japanese sex robot. Feel free to add as you like. And when he gets stuck the next time, he'll have to go to this list and randomly select something and insert it into the story and figure out how he's going to make that work.
I had this great idea for Tony Downs that, you know, he's a telepath and also, you know, psychologist, deals with crazy people. I had this vision of him, and he had this like macaw or big ass parrot that he'd saved from, or that one of the cases he solved or whatever, they got it from the guy, from the killer, and it always says the weirdest shit. It just basically just occasionally scream, you know, mimics human screams or other things, and he's keeping this parrot around. It would just be the creepiest thing when he walks in the door and have it say something every time he walks in there. I just had that image in my head for forever, and I may still do it, but it just sounded like a really creepy, funny, zany thing to put in a book.
Now just do what Uncle Sally tells you.
Oh, God. Oh. That's bad.
Yes, it is. Don't try this at home, kids.
Yeah, about that. So I think that, you know, we can sit here and give advice all day, and we can talk about methods that we use. And I say this with everything. You have to find your own way through this shit. You know, we can tell you what works or doesn't work for us, but basically you're going to have to try stuff. And I forget this all the time. Try something new, and it's tough. Do something different that you've done before.
Shake it up. Change it up.
Yeah, go write another chapter. Screw that chapter. Go write another one. And that's kind of the way I wrote their Destruction. I started the book out, instead of writing all the chapters like I normally do, interleaving between the characters, I went ahead and wrote everything I could about Kalimura and her squad on the Derelict. And then when I was done with that and knew how I was going to deal with them, then I knew how I was going to write the rest of the book. Because that was the most important part, was figuring out how in the freaking hell to deal with these folks. I'm not going to give out spoilers.
It doesn't. Everyone does.
it doesn't end well for anyone involved. No one gets away scot-free. Yeah, like that. You look scared, Terry.
I just had this vision of, them all trapped in marine country with the monsters circling closer, and they're tearing apart the lockers looking for something, anything to help them. And they open up one of the lockers, and it's got a sex robot in it. And then everyone stops and looks at one of the people, and he's like, "What? What?"
Can we short circuit this to create a spark?
There's an idea for you right there. Now they've got to use the sex robot to stop the monsters.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be in my next book. Okay, so.
It just goes to show you that while that may be an outrageous, stupid idea, you can come up with some off-the-wall things that may spark another idea.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to be silly. Don't be afraid to be silly. Sometimes being silly is the best thing ever. And it helps break up the tension. But, one other thing that helps is if I'm really locked up, like I was with Mimes, for instance, I did not know how to end that story. And I went in and talked to my wife and was like, I don't know how to end this story. She's like, okay, lay it out for me. So I laid it out for her and she goes, it's simple, Paul. He turns into a mime. It's a Paulie Cooley story. It's like, why didn't I think of that? So it was just one of those deals where, sometimes just talking to somebody about one specific issue, they can untie that for you because they can see the forest and the trees, and you can't.
Brainstorming, good thing.
Yeah, and of course you're really lucky if you have a friend like Terry Mixon who'll be more than happy to give you so many ideas that you have to throw them all away because they're bad, and then you find the good one. What'd you say?
Sex robot.
No sex robot. You are now going to be stuck on this for like the next 3 weeks. I can tell.
It's going to be the plot solution that just every time you come up with, what am I going to do this? This can be the first thing that pops to your mind. Then you'll have to put it aside and go, no, God damn it.
I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. Oh, God. Oh, I have to remember to tell this story when we end the episode. Anyway, yeah. So we've talked about in the last few weeks how to restart a work that has died on you. This is more of the same. I mean, this is really more of the same. It's exactly the same kind of problem. It's just that you haven't moved on from that work. You're not going back to it, but in a way you are. And like I've said, sometimes just going back and rereading the last few chapters will get you where you need to go. In this particular case, it was losing 3 paragraphs I've written because I trapped myself. And it was just a happy accident that went away. And it just unlocked everything. And so those moments happen. Do not despair, dear listener. Do not despair, dear writer. Help is on the way. Unless you're listening to us.
In which case you were doomed. Doomed, I tell you.
Doomed, I tell you. More doomed. I think that there are ways to do this, and you just kind of have to find them. But it sucks. It happens to all of us. Terry, I know Terry's been blocked before on things. I've blocked multiple times. We've both written ourselves into corners. Multiple times. It happens
all the time. It happens all the time, especially if you're a pantser.
And the longer you write a series, the more likely it's going to happen because you're trying to juggle all this crap that you've got going on. So
what works for me, I found, is that as I'm writing along and when things seem to be getting way too confusing, I just pick a primary thread and just keep marching with it. And the rest of the story will eventually fall into place.
Lies, slander, and propaganda.
Eventually.
Eventually. There are no quick fixes, but there are quick deaths. Paulie Cooley's motto of writing.
There is no right answer, but there's plenty of wrong ones.
There are plenty of wrong ones. Actually, there is no right answer. There's only wrong ones. It's just varying degrees of wrong, varying shades of wrong.
50 Shades of Wrong?
50. Please, no. No. Please, no. We're not going to start that discussion because it's not a discussion. It's not really a discussion at all. Right?
Nope. Not at all. Absolutely not.
All right. Have we pontificated enough?
I think we have pontificated enough.
All right. We've pontificated enough. Well, if you have a comment, question, or complaint about this episode, you can send an email to show@debrobotssociety.com. You can tweet us at Paul_E_Cooley because, as we said before, Terry's a lazy Luddite.
Damn millennials!
Or you can join our listeners in the Dev Robot Society Facebook group where all the crazy, all the questions, comments, everything else come in. And we have a lot of fun there. It's a very large community. If you need some help on something or some advice, believe me, you'll get plenty. I'm not going to say it's any good. Now I'm going to get smacked by our listeners. But come visit us there and come join us for some tea. And we'd be remiss if we didn't thank our wonderful host, Pod Oster, for making all 400 bazillion episodes of the Dev Robot Society available for your listening pleasure or pain. And if you want to help support us, you can join us at patreon.com/DRS podcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you can get access to exclusive content, early podcast episodes, live episodes, as well as hearing your name on the air. So speaking of, it's time to give a shout out to our $10 and above patrons, who are, here we go, Nathan, inventor of the Jotha Beam Weapon Petty. Drew, the Black versus Godzilla Bernardi. That's not going to get written, dude. Robert Slade, John Kilgallen, Chris Winder, Isabel Cushy, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, Jonathan Zarusin, J.R. Handley, Caleb, never try to milk a horse, James. I want to hear the story of how you know that. And Sue, what would you do without me, Bayman? So those
Caleb, Rule 34.
Yeah. Those are our $10 patrons. If you're listening to this episode, you can also find us at youtube.com/DRS podcast if you really want to see what we look like, and I don't advise it. On that note, Terry, thanks for joining me again and helping us get through this show and derailing us multiple times during the intro. Well, that was last week's episode.
As always.
As always. And folks, we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.